In this video, we're going to cover how to install the MyTimesheets app on a smartphone or tablet. So the first thing you need to do is go into your browser, so either Safari or Google on your phone, and enter the address which is mytimesheets.co/app, and I'll hit go. And what will happen then is it will load up the login screen for the MyTimesheets app. So then you would put in the email address and password that you've been provided and your company code, and you'll go log in, and then you will be in the app itself. Then all you need to do is down the bottom here, you need to create a shortcut to your desktop. So you click on whichever version of the browser you're using. It's close, it's iOS, and I would say add to home screen, and it's called My Timesheets, and I can go done. So now on my browser, on my desktop, on my phone, I've got a My Timesheets icon, and to access My Timesheets in future, I simply click on that, and it will ask me the very first time I come back into it to log in again. So you'd use whatever, again, the email address that you've been given. And you'd use the password that you've been provided and the company code, and you would log in. So once you're logged in, then in future, every time you come back to the app, you are going straight back into the app interface itself. You don't have to log back in again unless you use the swap account, which logs you out, which you shouldn't normally do. Then what you need to do is, if you wanted to add some time, you simply, or add some other transactional type, such as leave, you click on the add time button. Now, depending on the method that your company is using, so there are two different ways of entering time. One is a clock in, clock out. The other is entering total hours. So in this example, you are seeing clock in, clock out. But if I went to the other option, which is entering time as units, then I can enter the hours that I've worked. So it really depends on what your employer is doing. Most people are using the clock in, clock out. So then all I need to do to enter something, I can put in my start time. Now, again, depending on what your employer requires, in some cases the clock now and clock the in and out buttons are the only things you can do in addition to the notes. You can't actually set the start and finish times. In this particular demo that I've got, I can actually go in and set my start and finish time as I see fit. So let's say I'm going to put in here that I started at 8 o'clock. Now, if I was starting my day, I would simply go here, enter my start time, go OK, and then the transaction will just sit here waiting for me to finish my day. Then later in the day, I would come back into the app, click on that particular transaction type, go clock now to finish my day, and save. Now, one thing you will note is that the time is actually 15:04 or 3:04. I've got this set up to round to the nearest 5 minutes, so that's why it's changed the time. I simply go clock now and go OK, and then the data will be back in my timesheet screen. Now, I've got my particular app set up at the moment to not auto sync, so that requires me to click on the sync button. So if it's in auto sync mode, this record here will disappear and be uploaded to our servers immediately. If it's not set to auto sync, and that's something that's controlled by the employer, then you would simply tap on the sync button, and that would send your data to our servers. Now, if I was going to enter something other than time, I again would come back in here. Using the pick list, I can enter, for example, if I needed to say that I was taking some sick leave, I can choose sick leave. I can put in here how many hours I want of sick leave. I can put in a note, which I can put in a note for any record. I can also, if need be, choose my cost center, client, job, whatever that means for your organization. Now, and I can also put that into a particular task. I'll put it into test app for now. So the bottom two records down here, the cost center and job/task, those will only be visible if your company is tracking that information. If you're not tracking cost centers or tasks within cost centers, then this information here is not available to you. And the only items you'll see in the drop down up here as far as what you can enter will be what your employer has enabled for you. So if I wanted to do this, I would go OK. Now it would show here that I've taken some sick leave, and again, it would auto sync or manual sync. If I want a manual sync, I just click on the sync button and it's gone. And then I can just close the app until I next need to put in another entry. So then if I want to, I can just come back in here and repeat that process. So that's how we use the app version. Now this app version will work on or offline. So if you lose your connection, so you've got no data or you're not in a Wi-Fi setting, the transactions will just sit here and build up as a list during the day, and then when you get back into a Wi-Fi setting, you can either click on sync or it will auto sync for you that data back to the servers. So that's one version, and that's the one that will work on or offline. The second version is if you wanted to access My Timesheets through a browser. So again, you would go into your browser, but rather than going to mytimesheets.co, you can go to just straight to the mytimesheets.co website, so not /app, and that will load up in a browser mode where I can come in here and see the records that I've entered. So here you can see that I put in that I did that 7 hours earlier working in management. I also put in my 8 hours of sick leave. Now in this mode, I can scroll back and look at all my historical entries for the week. Now, depending on whether the employer will let you or not, you can come back in here and perhaps update a note or change cost center or whatever. Now, again, that's controlled by the system administrator, so your employer effectively. I can also, if I chose to use this particular method, now bear in mind that with the browser method, you can't use it in an offline state. It requires an internet connection, either Wi-Fi or data, but I can still do the same thing as I did in the app. If I've got Wi-Fi, I can come in here, I can put in a start and finish time, or I can put in some hours or whatever I may want to do. And again, I can enter the data in the same way. What I can also do in this particular version is I've got other options. So if I wanted to, I can run a report on screen of what I've entered so far. I can also use the messaging tool in here. So I can come in, I can create a message and send that to my manager. For example, I'll send it to Steve, and I can put in a message, and what will happen is that Steve will get a pop-up message. I can also choose to send that as an email as well, and I save it. That message will go to my manager, who can then reply through the app. So the app's pretty straightforward in both versions. This one gives you more opportunity to do things, but it does require an internet connection, and you can then also see what's going on with your data through the week. Now, what you will see is you'll see these icons. So a question mark will show that the timesheet hasn't yet been approved. If I went back into the employer side of things and went in here, try doing that again, and I went in and reviewed your timesheet for that particular employee, and I approved that particular record there. So I'm going to approve the sick leave. Let's move this out of the way, and I will say it's approved. What will happen is that when my browser refreshes, you'll see here on the right, it's got a green thumbs up. Now, if I had a red thumbs down, so let's just for argument's sake say that we're going to decline this particular, the other entry on that particular day, because you can't be at work and be sick at the same time. So now, again, when I refresh my browser on my phone, I can see that I've got one declined and one approved. So that's how you will know that your data has been viewed by a manager. And that's all you need to know. So basically, you've got the browser version on the device, which lets you enter data, view data, send messages, run reports, etc. And then you've also got the app version, which lets you enter data as a pure data entry tool, but also it'll work in an online or offline state. Hopefully that helps.